So as people jump in here, we'll have some people jumping in here with class tonight, so I'll admit them as they pop up. But tonight is going to be on the garden beneficial insects that we see out in the garden. And we have many people that will have questions about those and whether they're a good insect or a bad insect, and then what do they do? Or sometimes you'll see the larva, and the larva will freak people out, or the nymph. A nymph is where we're going through incomplete metamorphosis, and the nymph stage looks just like a small adult. So this is where we're going to go, 45 slides, hopefully not terribly, terribly long, but lots of pictures to show you that we will look at going forward. So the objective is to understand the importance of the beneficial insect, is that they are extremely important to the ecosystem with biodiversity. They also are our natural hunters, that they are out hunting insects and doing a good job. They're also a strategy for us to reduce the use of synthetic insecticides and other pesticides to kill a problem off. So when we see Asian lady beetle larvae, we don't want to freak out, that they are a good creature, that they are doing the job. Sometimes the larva stage is the stage that we want to work with. They're the most important when it comes to controlling insect problems. So we'll talk about those benefits, what they do, how to identify some of these insects. And so we'll give you a taste with pictures. You can do your own research looking up. Sometimes you see great YouTube videos of some of these insects. You can look them up as well. And then also learning what you can do to help attract them to the garden, because there are certain plant families that have plants that are really good at attracting these insects. And so not only do I identify them, but what can we do environment-wise to include them or to encourage them to show up? So they are the presence of a reduced synthetic insecticide use. If you're using a synthetic insecticide, so think of Sevin and Orthene and some of those insecticides, those wipe everything out. Those are called a spectricide, meaning they're going to kill anything good, bad, or indifferent. It's not going to discriminate. It's going to take them all out. And when you use those insecticides over and over and over again, your insect diversity collapses in the process. You also, when you have more natural beneficial insects, you're increasing the biodiversity in the ecosystem, which is also really important because we want diversity of insects in our ecosystem, so we have greater variety, and planting a variety of plant materials will also encourage that. So they go hand in hand. They also control natural pests. They are already programmed to hunt those insects out, and they also reduce our need to use some of those synthetic insecticides if we know what we're looking for and knowing what their habits are. And they generally follow infestations. So if we have an infestation of aphids, then you can expect some the green lacewings, for example, are wonderful. They are known as aphid lions. The larvae are the ones that go after aphids. And so they tend to follow the populations of the pests. So, you know, they're like little mercenaries. They're very beneficial to have around in the ecosystem. So it's part of your IPM, integrated pest management. This is a non-chemical way of, one, bringing the biodiversity in, bringing a variety of plant materials into the landscape, and knowing how to identify those plants and those pests and those good creatures to avoid that synthetic indiscriminate insecticide. So remember, when we talk about IPM, that synthetic insecticide, while it is a tool in the toolbox, it is usually the last tool that we want you to use. And so that's the message when you talk with other people and convey information, that these are some strategies to reduce the pesticide use or exposure. And that has become very, very important with many people across the country, of reducing pesticide use whether it be a lawn, whether it be a flower bed, or whether it be your vegetable garden. So let's talk about the popular beneficial insects that we see here in Nebraska. This is just the main set, but are really important for us to know, to get to know these creatures. Some of them have funny names, some of them have names based off of what they look like and their characteristics, so it's quite interesting. So the first one is our minute pirate bug. And on our left side of the screen is our adult, and they have a white wedge shape on their back end, and their thorax in the middle has a gray tan band, and then on their upper thorax has the black point. And so you think of the pirate, they're black and white and tan. They also have the ability to bite. The adults will bite, and the bites do hurt, so be careful of those. And then if you look at the larvae, the little ones, they are they're young. They don't have the pigments yet. They don't have the exoskeleton yet, as we talked about. They are kind of a yellowish color, yellow cream color. They do have the red eyes that helps you identify these little creatures. Not very few of these are very big. So one of the flies, the tachnid fly that we're talking about, is 3/8 of an inch. All of these are less than 3/8 of an inch in size. All of these guys are little guys. So we have a couple. Come on in, grab your handout. So here's some general information on the pirate bug. It goes through instars. So remember how we talked about instars, where they shed their casings to go to another stage. They go through 5 stages to become an adult. And they are a general predator, meaning that they will predate a variety of things. So they do not care if they are specifically hunting on something or not. They will tackle a number of insects. And so here are some of their fun favorite eats. They love aphids, and we love that they love aphids, leafhopper nymphs, spider mites, insect eggs of all types, small caterpillars, which can include butterfly larvae. So some of those are butterfly larvae that can be eaten, thrips, and whiteflies. So this one is a pretty good one. Remember the white on the back, the tan in the middle, and the black right around the head, and they do bite. So our next one is a damsel bug. The damsel bug is narrow. It is kind of a mottled gray with some darker in here, long-legged, some long antennae, and they have a beak-like mouth part that can crush. So if you think of like the beak on a bird or a parrot, where it's doing this, it'll crush, and those legs can pull them in. They are very good. Damsel bugs are very good creatures. They have very strong legs that can grasp the prey, and they will pull it in, and they will use their parrot-like mouth part to crush and to kill their prey. So they like soft-bodied insects, and so that's what's beneficial about them. So caterpillars are soft-bodied. Your aphids are soft-bodied. Leafhoppers, thrips, and spider mites. So all of them that don't really have a tough exoskeleton, they will go and they will crunch on them, and that's not a problem. So they're fairly easy to work with. So always remember a slender, cigar-shaped body, long legs, long antenna, and it has, if you really look at them close, you'll see that parrot-like beak-shaped mouth part that does that job, and it crushes and it chews. The next one is one of our all-time favorites in the green industry. You can buy green lacewings and let them loose in a greenhouse. They are a wonderful feeder. They're known as the aphid lion, because of their larva stage. You will see the lacewings where they lay eggs. They're quite interesting, where the eggs are suspended. They look like they're suspended in air, and their larvae are the ones that really do a lot of the feeding. They have an alligator type body. So you think of an alligator, they do look like that they're segmented. They have their legs and they have really good mouth parts on them. And then the adult is the green lacewing, and green lacewings usually have fairly long antenna, very lacy, iridescent, see-through wings, and they are a soft green color. These are one of our best friends in the garden. We definitely want to encourage them around. So always look for those suspended eggs on plant material, like here with the leaf. And you know, the larvae do look like a little alligator. And then of course the green lacewing adult, you've seen this one, right? You've seen this one around. This is definitely one of our best friends. So we talked about the green color as the adult with the long antenna. The larvae are the alligator, and they're kind of that straw color. The adults eat general pests, and they eat anything that eats honeydew. So they also eat aphids because aphids leave honeydew, which is their poop. That's why if you park under a maple tree and there's a lot of aphids in there, you'll see all the sticky stuff on your windshield. That is honeydew. So that is a good sign that there probably will be some aphid lions floating around. Some lacewings will be in the neighborhood. So they eat aphids, they eat thrips, which spread disease and viruses such as our Astroyellows, our spider mites, which cause problems in a lot of our evergreens, mealybugs, which we see the mealybugs, especially indoors in greenhouses. So that's why you can buy lacewings to populate in your greenhouse to go naturally feed on your mealybug population with bedding plants, and whiteflies. Whiteflies are outside, they're also inside. So there's a benefit of having these friends in the greenhouse as well. Our next one is our soldier bug. And our soldier bug is one of those that looks relative to our squash bug. You think of the squash bug has a similar type of body. They have a hard exoskeleton, which is good for them because that's a protective layer. They have a more of an ornate body pattern as a nymph. So this one's going through incomplete metamorphosis. So it is not a complete metamorphosis process. So they're going to have the same basic body shape, and they will go through and they will become adults eventually. They just don't go through complete metamorphosis. So the spined soldier bug will have spines on the sides that are lateral. They will also have in the back this black or brown diamond that is going to be a contrast from the rest of the body. And so this one is going to eat caterpillars. So they're going to be indiscriminate of all the caterpillar larvae that are in the environment. They will eat true bugs, the true bug class, the nymphs, other nymphs, and they will also eat beetle larvae before beetles go through metamorphosis and have that hard exoskeleton. So some of our beetles will be on here. There are some of our good creatures, some of the good guys and gals out there, but they will eat. Some of our beneficials will eat other beneficials in the process. So that's part of the law of nature. They kind of help regulate the population on their own naturally. The next one is the brown lacewing, and you will not see the brown lacewing as much as the green lacewing. Once again, they will have an alligator-like larva. They will feed, they will eat, they eat a large variety of insects, just not as numerous here as the green lacewing. Very, very nice creature. So they eat mealybugs, they eat thrips, they eat mites. So you can see this is another one that would be good to have in the greenhouse as well as outdoors. Whiteflies, aphids, leafhoppers, and then small caterpillars. So this one, the brown lacewing really doesn't care what it eats either. So if a population starts to expand in an ecosystem of one of these species, of these pests, you will see that population blow up. And you'll also see the beneficial population blow up if you don't kill them off with insecticides. So the next one is our big-eyed bug. And there is such a thing as a big-eyed bug because look at the eyes. They're there, that's the biggest identifier is looking at their eyes. They do have the glossed over wings over a darker body. They are also another one that is very beneficial outdoors that will eat. People are very attracted to those large eyes. And when someone calls it a big-eyed bug, it really is a big-eyed bug. So that is very handy. And the big, it's a general predator. It'll eat pretty much anything. Small caterpillars, insect eggs of all types, mites, thrips, whiteflies, and flea beetles. And we've had flea beetle problems with our soybeans and our beans in the garden the last few years in this region. So you might see some big-eyed bugs out in the field, or if you have soybeans in adjacent fields, crop fields, they will come around and they'll help clean up your flea beetle population. So another good one. The next one is a favorite of a lot of people. This is the assassin bug, also known as the wheel bug, because look at the thorax. The spines on it, we call a wheel. So if you hear someone talk about a wheel bug, this is what a wheel bug is, and it's also known as the assassin bug. And it has a very large antenna. It has needle-like mouth parts that will poke and will kill. So it is very tough. It has a very tough exoskeleton that will be very hard to penetrate. That's and it literally goes out and it cleans up a lot of bad insect pests as well. So it'll clean up caterpillars, aphids, leafhoppers, insect eggs, indiscriminate, small beetles, so some of your small ones that aren't good, such as your flea beetle, and true bugs. And I will send you some information out after this class with the recording and the quiz of the general orders. So what is in each order, so you guys and gals know some of that information. So I will pass that along to you so that you can add to your library. So this is not going to be a terribly, terribly long class, but we can have some great discussion. I can show you some of these resources in kind of that Q&A time after class. So they are another great one. The assassin bug has the wheel on the back of it, has a big old case of armor, kind of like a tank. Very tough, indestructible creature. That's great. Our next one is our Asian lady beetles. And this is where we have another alligator type larva. And you see the larva and you see the orange or the red and the black and the gray, and people really think that that is a very harmful insect. And no, it's actually the larva of the lady beetle. Asian lady beetles, there's lots of different larvae or different types of Asian lady beetles. They're not just the typical ladybug. They're different colors and different patterns of their pupa will start to will exhibit that orange. So you'll get to see their egg masses. Always look on the undersides of leaves for egg masses. They have those kind of conical, orangish yellow, more yellow type egg masses, but they are really a friend. You will hear about people buying boxes of ladybugs and letting them loose. And they're great in a confined facility such as a greenhouse. They will populate in with your plant materials and do their job. The larva stage is very good. This is where a lot of the feeding goes on. So like I said, the larva, the Asian lady beetle, the lady beetles will lay their eggs and they will hatch. And then as they turn into larvae, they will follow the pest population. So the lady beetles as adults know where the pest population is starting to expand. They will lay eggs, they will hatch, they will go into larvae, and they will start feeding. So, and always look on the undersides of the leaves, at the bases of plants. It's very good. And so we had a very good example of a very good Asian lady beetle population in our cucumbers in the high tunnel greenhouse one year that we're trying to avoid using anything. We ended up using some pyrethrins because the aphid population just got out of hand. But we tried not to spray where the Asian lady beetles were, so they would stick around and do the control. But they'll eat aphids. They will also eat scale insects. So if you see like your euonymus shrub that looks like little pieces of white rice stuck to your euonymus, that is scale. That's one of the scale insects. And the Asian lady beetle larva, the alligator, will eat your scale insects. They will go and chew on those. Caterpillars, spider mites, mealybugs, and insect eggs. They also, the adults will eat on plants, nectar, pollen, and fungi. So they will chew, the adults will do some damage in the landscape feeding. And so that's one of those situations where you have to be okay with them doing their job. It's okay. You know, you'll take a little bit of damage from them. Or think about this, you'll also take some damage from your butterfly larvae, such as your monarchs and your swallowtail on your dill, because they're going to produce more butterflies. So we kind of have to know, looking at the damage and the feeding from the Asian lady beetles or the butterfly larvae, it's okay. Things, they have to eat too. So that's what's important with these creatures. We have a lot of different types of ground beetles, and they are ground dwellers. They're not going to fly. They do have the hard scales and the hard shapes behind them. Here's some pictures of their larvae that are usually cream colored, and they've got sets of antennae at the back and the front. Feeling, sensing, smell is used with their antenna. They are very good. They look kind of like worms, segmented worms or millipedes, but they're usually the cream color. They are there's many beetles. They are in the order called Coleoptera. It's one of the largest insect orders in the world. So you will see lots of variations of this beetle, of the ground beetles doing their job. And so there's a whole book that we have on hand in the extension office that you should also have in your neighboring extension offices wherever you live, that Kansas State University built a number of years ago that has excellent information on a number of the common beetle species here on the Great Plains. And so if you're interested in that book, I will show you the order form online when we get done with class, because that's a very complete book. It's a very good one. They are a general predator. Once again, small insects, spiders, they'll also eat spiders, and under other ground-dwelling arthropods that have that shell. The next one is a flower fly, and people will get excited. They think this is a bee species, but it is a fly. It is not a bee. It has two clear wings. It has large eyes and very short antennae. And they do have alternating yellow and black or brown stripes. They're not true stripes because there's some of these, some of the bands kind of curl up a little bit on either side. They're very handy, but they're nice creatures. They're small. They really are a fly. They are not a bee. Their larvae are cream colored or almost translucent. And this is the picture of their larva with an aphid next door. So you have an aphid right there next to the larva, and they are very good eaters. So once they're a larva species, they eat aphids, scales, mealybugs, spider mites, and thrips. So they eat quite a bit. So if you run across something that looks kind of like a bee, but it doesn't have a stinger on it, and it has eyes like a fly, it's a flower fly. And so it's a really good creature to have around here in the landscape. And some of our flower flies even get kind of a metallic color to them sometimes. So now we're going to talk about the wasps. We have some wasp species. The Nucamids are very interesting. They have a very long set of antennae that curl backwards. They have a long ovipositor if they're a female, and they have long legs and these wings that stick out. And these are very interesting because they predate, they're parasitoids. They can vary reddish brown on the legs, red or brownish black bodies, long ovipositor. And they were introduced in the United States as a natural enemy for the European corn borer larva. So you will see these in areas where you have acreages or in the country or rural communities where you are adjacent to cornfields, because they will be in the cornfields attacking the European corn borer larva, but they will also show up in your garden and landscape. And we see them out here at the farm because we're, of course, surrounded by the fields, so it's easy to see. They lay their eggs on the pest. So they have that long ovipositor. We talked about the tube that lays the eggs. Lay the eggs on there, they hatch, they burrow into the pest, and they eat the pest from the inside out and emerge. So if you ever watch the movie Alien, it's kind of like the movie Alien. So maybe some of the ideas came from this insect. So they hatch, they go into the aphid, they grow, and they emerge out of the dead aphids. So that's what they do. So that's one of the cool ones with our parasitoid wasps. So this is one of them. Then we had a cytoside mite, little itty guy, itty bitty, 1/50th of an inch. And they're translucent, they're kind of cream colored, not much to see about them. They are a mite, you can tell, and they love spider mites. They love spider mites. So you will see mites feeding with other spider mites. The two-spotted spider mite is the one that does so much damage on our evergreens, where they will suck the juice out. And when it comes hot in the summer, then you'll all see, why are my evergreens browning down? It's spider mite damage. Well, by the time your spider mite has fed and left, it takes a little while for things to get hot in the summer. That's when you see the bronzing effect of the damage from the spider mite. These mites will follow the spider mite and will feed on it naturally. So natural predator, as long as they can keep the two-spotted spider mite population in control, you will not see a noticeable difference. There will still be damage on your evergreens, but it won't be so much that it will garner your attention, if that makes sense. So now we have our tachinid fly. This is bigger than a housefly. It looks like a big housefly. Hairy, long legs, very spiny legs, lots of pubescence on the legs itself. It is a very good friend of ours. So there are people that do nothing but focus on studying flies their entire career, including one of our retired entomologists, Dr. Jack Campbell, who had passed away, gosh, about 8 years ago. That's what his study work was on fly control in livestock facilities. And so he would run into the different types of flies that would work. You had phase flies, you had different ones that were doing, and house flies doing different types of damage and control in livestock facilities or feedlots. And then you would see the tachinid flies also present. So you would see different fly species in amongst themselves working. Sometimes you'd have the beneficials in with the pests. But the thing is about them, they're 3/8 of an inch. So they look like a big hairy housefly, and they're a parasitoid. They will lay eggs, and they will take out the caterpillars, beetles, grasshoppers, and other insects. So they will do that as well. Especially grasshoppers. My gosh, sometimes we have grasshopper weather and the grasshopper population gets out of control here. But every once in a while, you'll see a grasshopper carcass left from when, one of these parasitoids has went in and turned it into a host and used its body to incubate and come back out as a fly. So you'll see maggots rolling out of the host. So that's a sign that was a parasitoid wasp. And here's Braconid fly. This is another one, looks like kind of like our wasp, but look at the ovipositor. Long ovipositor here. That's another clue. Long antenna, kind of a reddish color, and it has a black head. That's one way that we can talk about the Braconid that helps us is the black head with the reddish body, with the antenna that curl backwards. And if it's a female, it has that long ovipositor. You can't miss the ovipositor on that one. So it's really kind of interesting. 3/16 long, so it's not as big. And the ovipositor is longer than the rest of the entire body if it's a female. And it is a parasitoid, another one. And it will control caterpillars, beetle larvae, aphids, and other insects. So it is a indiscriminate creature. So it will attack and lay its larva or its eggs. The larva it'll hatch, go into the host, live inside of the host and reemerge. And our last one, last but not least, are mantids. So this is one of my favorites. They're very fascinating creatures to watch. If they end up in the greenhouse, we let them just live and get settled in. On the right-hand side of your slide is the egg case of mantids. So people will wonder, well, what is this stuck to my brick? That is the mantids. Mantids. Yes, they love to stick to permanent parts. So like your deck, Larry Throm talked about on his deck. I have one on the brick on my porch. And also here, like there's a couple here that were ended up on a clothespin. So they tend to like permanent structures to lay their egg cases on. Fascinating creatures. They are nymphs as well as adults. So you will see smaller ones. Those are the nymphs versus the adults. They will feed on pests and other beneficials. So they will eat anything. So this is one that you have to let them go and eat everything, let them do their thing. They will change colors based on their surroundings. So they do have the ability to change colors and blend in. They will hide, they will rest and wait for their prey to show up. And then they will attack. And so we can show a video of one eating. They're kind of fascinating. When they mate, the female will rip the head off of the male in the mating process. That's one of the cool / weird things about mantids. And they produce the very interesting egg cases. And people will say, what is this? And they'll send me a picture. It's a mantid case. So that's a sign. They're long too. They're big. And people will wonder, well, what is that? Well, those are the mantids. And I've always said the presence of a mantid or mantids in the landscape is a sign of a healthy ecosystem. So it's very good. Very, very good for us to have. I believe the females are a little bit larger than the males. So they are big. They will watch you. We had them in plant material in the greenhouse and we just walked around them and they'll turn their heads and they'll watch what you're doing and where you're going. They're quite fascinating creatures. So, oh yeah, when they rip the head off the male, that's like, what a way to go out. So I don't know if they eat the males. I just know they rip the heads off. That'd be something I would have to do some more reading up on. But they mate, and that's the end of the male. Kind of like bees. The drone bee will mate with a worker, and the male reproductive parts basically in the guts are ripped out. So some insects, when the male reproduces with the female, it's a one and done. And this is one of those one and dones. In this case, we're ripping the head off. So that is a quick slideshow of these creatures. Do you want to take a quick break? Because then we'll talk about attracting the beneficials. Take a quick break, go to the bathroom, get some coffee, or check on messages. I think everyone's in and not has a problem right now in the class. So I'm going to pause the recording now. Okay, so now we're going to talk about attracting those beneficial insects. And we're going to talk about some plant families that are really helpful. And these are the ones, some of these are very large families, some of them are vegetables, some of them are flowers. And this is where we get into integrating herbs and vegetables and flowers together. So before we decided everything had to be planted in rows years and years and years and years ago, people had cottage gardens that had their own herbs, their own flowers, and their veggies mixed together. And in the process, they introduced beneficial insects naturally. You know, they didn't have to go out and study entomology to learn this. They just did it. And so this is going back to just good old knowledge of plants and understanding the environment and what attracts these insects. So we're going to talk about these families. So go back here. So general recommendations, plants can be planted on borders. So maybe if you don't want them planted in with the vegetables, you can plant the plant materials on the borders of gardens or the edge of a bed. You can incorporate them directly in. You can also plant in margins. They work great as long as they're present. And so you can have, you know, you could maybe if you want a set of lantana over on one side or a patch of dill somewhere else, plant them in a patch. You can mass some of these all together. They don't have to be integrated in just so they're in the nearby area. That's what's really important with these creatures. So when we're talking about low residual chemical control, there are some times when the bad insect population is so overwhelming that our predators and our parasitoids and our beneficials can't control them. So this is what you can do to still use it, get the immediate concern controlled without having residual impact with an insecticide. And these are low residual chemical control options. Your insecticidal soaps, your horticultural oils, and your botanical insecticides, such as neem, pyrethrins, rotenone, and savadilla. All of those three, those four down there, and then your soaps and your oils will control the immediate, but they break down very fast. They don't have a residual impact that will control and accidentally kill good insects, beneficial insects in the future. So if all else fails, remember this is the bottom of the toolbox. So, but sometimes you just have to do that. And in the case where we had a large lady beetle population in the high tunnel, they're going after the big aphid problem we had on some cucumbers. So that's what we had to do. That's just what had to happen this year. So we used some pyrethrins and it took care of them. And we didn't totally destroy the lady beetle population. They did come back. So that is, remember, it is a tool in the IPM tool belt. It's just the one at the bottom. So let's start with a family that we know well. Apiaceae, this is the carrot family. This is a good family to plant not only for the vegetables and the herbs, but also because it attracts your tachinid flies and a lot of your parasitic wasps. They like this family, they're a food source, and then you can interplant these herbs in either in an herb garden or in flower beds, because herbs and flowers work really good too together. And they do have the benefit, they do have some ornamental value. So caraway, cilantro. So some people just grow cilantro to let them have the foliage and they bloom a white blossom, star-shaped blossom that turns into coriander seed in the end, and they will reseed themselves and come back up. Dill will reseed itself very well and populate back up. It also, fennel also is another one, and Queen Anne's lace. Now, maybe we don't want Queen Anne's lace around in our garden, but you will see it out in the fields and the pastures, and they do have a good purpose in attracting these good insects as hosts. So our next family is one of the largest families botanically that we can ever have here, and that is the sunflower family, or Asteraceae. It is the family we would also call the aster family. So that is good to know. They attract all the Asian lady beetle species that we have here, and the soldier beetles, some of those ground beetles that do the great job of feeding. And so you can interplant all different types of plants that fall in the aster family. A lot of them are seeds that would be wildflowers or bedding plant seeds that you could just throw in the flower bed, or you can buy transplants. But you think about Gaillardia, the Indian blanket flower, the cone flowers, all the many different types of cone flowers, Coreopsis, Cosmos, goldenrod. You have wild goldenrod as well as domestic goldenrod. And you have marigolds and too many more to list. So lots and lots of good plants in here. We talk about people that will bring in your marigolds in with your tomatoes. Well, of course, it brings in the Asian lady beetle, which is great. So people will say it's maybe the strong smell, but it's attracting a good insect. The Asian lady beetles are great. So it's one of the beneficials, for example, marigolds and tomatoes. So the next one is our Fabaceae. These are legumes, or we call the pea and bean family. And you have a wild variety of beneficials that will come in to visit this family. So you can use them as cover crops or as vegetables. So you can cover crop with some of these cover crops after the gardening season is over and attract these beneficials. Or maybe you have a piece of ground that you're putting to rest because you want the nitrogen fix off of these cover crops. They still will attract the beneficials that are good in the landscape and the garden. And of course, if you're in the garden, you know, you can plant your peas and your bean species. Sometimes people just plant the peas and the beans just for the sake of fixing the soil and nothing else. Maybe you plant late peas and you don't worry about the peas on the pea pods, but they give you the nitrogen, especially after it's been in a place where the nitrogen has been depleted by some of your heavier feeding crops. And then you can just use them for that till you have your green cover crop. You also increase the beneficial population by a substantial amount. So that is a great family. Also, you think of your peas and your beans, another one plant that is good, which is an ornamental plant that you can have, is false indigo. False indigo is also found in the pastures, as well as the domesticated Baptisia is its name, Latin name, but I have some false indigo in my one flower bed here in town, and it is called, I believe, custard yellow or something like that. It's a pretty yellow color. That's a yellow color of false instead of the purplish blue violet of the native. But that is a great plant you could have in your flower bed or in the garden as a border plant. So Baptisia or false indigo is a great border plant to put in the landscape or in the border of the garden or in the flower bed that also has ornamental value as well. So I had someone talking about cover on a hillside or a slope, and vetch is a great cover crop for that. It holds soil, doesn't allow it to go away, and it also is a great nitrogen fixer as well as a beneficial attractant. The Brassica family, this is your mustards. These are what we call the family of the cold crops. So all of your cold, cool season cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, mustard greens, all of these guys are in that family, mustard greens. So these are the beneficials, they are the ones that will attract your predators. So your parasitoids. We talked about some of our parasitoids that go in and they lay the eggs hatch, they dig into the pest and then emerge later. So they are a great one. This is a family that really should be kind of planted as a group. Remember how we talk about planting by family? We plant these creatures as a family and maybe try to keep them away from some of the other plants in the garden because they will attract the cabbage looper moth and some other pests too. So they will attract some pests as well as some good things. And if you keep them planted as a family and move that family around in the garden, that's ideal. Sometimes you don't have all the space in the world to do that, but that's kind of the idea. So the next one is our Verbena family, and we have Verbena in different forms. We have the annual Verbena that's a bedding plant that's used in containers. You can also plant Verbena, the bedding plant Verbena in your garden, in the vegetable garden, and within rows. You can also plant that in flower beds. You can also plant lantana. Lantana is kind of a bigger plant, but it would be a good border plant or a grouping nearby. There's a couple different types of Verbena here, the hybrid and the Buenos Aires, and then the vervains. And so we will talk, I'll show you some pictures of those so you get an idea if you've never seen those creatures before. But these are the really good families that clean up a lot of your pests if you plant them in the garden, because they will attract the beneficials that will come and eat the bad stuff. So this is total IPM and integrating in. And so my back one, my backside, we have our resources. These are old NEB guides that I pulled from and also from Penn State. And so Penn State Extension has a lot of great vegetable gardening and ornamental horticulture and entomology resources. So I pulled from that. So that is the slide set for tonight. So let's jump out of sharing and go to the panel if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, I will go up to the web and we'll start looking at some
I got a question.
pictures.
When you talk about putting a cover crop on, like your sweet clover and your alfalfa, how difficult is it then after you plant that? Is it gonna be to get rid of it when you decide to go back to planting into that spot?
Okay, so the question is when we get rid of the cover crop, sometimes like sweet clover, it takes a little while to get rid of it. And so that's where you probably need to do some tillage and to really work it, or you could plant in strips. Leave some of your cover crop in strips or leave a strip behind and then plant in. And so you'd have mix some cover crop and some of your intended crops. So depending on how much space, you could alternate that, and that'd be like strip cropping. So that would be a way to do it. Here's a picture of the Buenos Aires Verbena, Verbena bonariensis. It is not wanting to share the right picture. I apologize.
Sorry, but
Thank you for telling me. Did it show up again? No, it didn't. I'll have to jump clear out of it. Jump clear out of it. Did it show up?
nope.
No, that didn't show up then. Well, I'll keep playing with it. So,
I was looking at the Buenos Aires
You're
one,
seeing
showing
it.
up for me.
I saw it too.
okay, so our people
I see
online can see it, but the people in class cannot. So
That was the trouble we had last.
I
time.
had that the trouble the last time. So I think I've confused this poor computer and screen. So I'll have to show my friends online or if you want to come around, you can come look at the screen. You can stand up and come look behind over my shoulder. How about that?
I'll do that. I'm okay with that.
So it really is kind of a neat plant. It is tall, kind of reminds you of the form of lantana, kinda. It has a very airy look, but the way the stems are established. So it is a free flowering plant. It is a neat one. Now they use it as an accent or a height divider, so you could use it as a border. So it's going to get fairly tall here. So
David, I'm online and I'm not seeing what you had after you switch your screen.
I'm not either.
okay,
Nope, I'm
Gosh.
not seeing it anymore either.
darn it. Well, I broke it. We broke it trying to find all this. Well, what did I do? This is really annoying. Why did Zoom do that? I played around with it and then it didn't want to behave. I had it and then I tried to share it and I confused it. And probably knowing David, he confused himself in the process. So I apologize sincerely for the goof up. So, no, it's not Brad's fault. Brad did it. Okay, so let me. Some days you got to be smarter than the computer, right? Let me go back to my Zoom and find our room again. Technology is great as long as it works, right? Sometimes you just can't have your cake and eat it too. It's a little difficult. Okay. For crying out loud, what did I do? Well, I messed something up, and that's the nicest way to say it. Well, how about this? I'm going to jump out of the meeting and have to reset it. I don't like doing this, but I don't know how else I can do this. So everyone, please stay on. Hang tight. And then I will jump back in. So I will jump out. You all stay where you're at. And I will be back. So 1 second, please.
This is that learning curve you was talking about earlier.
It's called a learning curve. That's right.
Hi, David's technologically challenged. David, Oh my God. He did something and flipped on something. Okay, well, I'm gonna just, okay, I'm gonna log out and I want you all to stay here and he says so all the time. So I'm gonna log out. And so I want you, everybody to stay. And so that's what I'm gonna log out now. And so, and then when I, has not yet. So when I come back, then I'll just log back in. That Jean Montgomery is that too. Yeah.
I don't think that as the host, he can leave and come back in.
I don't
I think we are all in a sinking ship right now.
Yeah, and there's like 18 questions. Why doesn't he just tend to those and call it a night? Boy, oh boy, oh boy. And Megan, I'm kind of done because next week is, let's see, next week he's gone. So it's just we'll read it. And then I'm gone.
David's back.
I'm back.
And
I'm
then-
back. Let's see if I can get it right.
Here he comes. So I gotta go now.
Please share.
Well,
Do
you
you
got
s-
all the water, everything's good?
Do you see a screen that says Zoom?
Yeah.
No, you guys don't. But online, do you guys see a screen?
Just a black screen, David, is
Black
all I
screen,
see.
David.
Black screen.
It's the black screen of death, David.
Uh,
All right, very good. How was the birthday back east?
Okay, screen of death. I'm really annoyed by
Oh,
this. Why it does not want to do this.
No. 50, no.
Yeah, they can hear you, so you better not be saying anything too racy. You better be behaving.
No, probably not even a buy now. Just click.
Okay, I don't know why this is not wanting to work.
Okay. Talk to you.
Marcia, you're not muted if you want to mute. We're all overhearing your conversation.
David, I clicked on your picture and then it came up full screen.
Okay, I do not know why. I have messed something up. Let me try one more time. If not, I will just send you links. How about that? So I'm apologizing. I tried earlier today to run 2 Zoom meetings simultaneously. And obviously I did something that it did not like. So one more.
See, yeah.
Okay, so we are unmuted. I think what we're going to do is we're going to stop the recording since I goofed up enough. So at least get it stopped and see if we can share the screen again.